Coming up, a preview of the Pope's expected visit to Canada. The founder of the San Manuel tribe is honored, and outstanding Indigenous athletes. I'm Mackenzie Allen-Charmley, filling in for Leah Chavez. Join us for those interviews, plus headlines from the ICT Newscast.
This program is made possible in part by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, a private corporation funded by the American people.
Arizona PBS is proud to support Indian Country Today. For 6 decades, we've provided television programs and now digital content. But we go beyond that, sending outreach teams across Arizona, offering workshops in language and literacy, family engagement and community outreach, and supporting tribal communities with early learning and school readiness resources. Join us at azpbs.org.
This is the ICT Newscast with Leah Chavez.
Thank you for joining us. Leah Chavez is away. Water, sacred land, and healthcare for urban Native people. Those were the topics of the top of U.S. senators' minds on Wednesday. The Senate Indian Affairs Committee held a legislative hearing yesterday to consider 3 bills that are being proposed into law. The first would ratify the water rights agreement between the Hualapai and the state of Arizona. This agreement comes a decade into the making. Hualapai Chairman Damon Clark told U.S. senators how his tribe currently gets water.
We are very, very short on water. Now we're taking water from a fire hydrant, putting it in a truck, trucking it to another area for it to get out to Grand Canyon West. In the meantime, our community is suffering because we're taking water from the community to go out there. And if our water truck breaks down or has a flat, then we have to fix that. And again, we're short on water because there's no water going out there.
An official from the Interior Department said the agency supports the water agreement. The second bill heard would put over 1,000 acres of land into trust for the Karuk tribe if passed into law. Chairman Buster Atbury backed the legislation, explaining how his tribal nation has used the area.
In Karuk language, these places are known as Kadamim and Ayuhich, our center of the world. Amikiadam, our place for first salmon ceremony.
The last bill heard by senators would require the U.S. Health and Human Services Agency to include urban Indian health organizations in communication about Native health care. Moving forward, the committee will need to hold at least one other hearing to decide how to proceed. An Inuk pastor in Ottawa says opposition to an extended stay building for Inuit visiting for medical appointments is just plain hurtful. After a key vote from Ottawa's City Council, Manitok Thompson says she was shocked. APTN's Fraser Needham has the latest on this developing story.
Any disease you can think of, Inuit go to Larga to stay.
That's Larga Baffin pastor Manitok Thompson talking about why the facility desperately needs a new home. Its current West End location is only able to accommodate about 200 people in 100 rooms.
But because there's a lack of space, there's other hotels that are being used as overflow. And sometimes relatives are divided because they can't find space for them in that building. It's a very crowded building.
The proposed building will expand this to 220 rooms with capacity for 350 people. Even though Ottawa's City Council unanimously approved construction of the new building, Thompson says local opposition to the facility, which sometimes stereotyped Inuit, still hurts.
I was shocked. I was totally shocked from the reaction, from the public reaction. We're not criminals. Otherwise, we would be in jail. And to be treated like we're all dysfunctional families, we're dysfunctional people, drug addicts, drunks. It's shocking.
Local councillor Diane Deans originally opposed the new building, saying it will cause traffic congestion and change the residential nature of the area, but she voted to approve the project after successfully getting an amendment passed for a land use study of adjacent vacant properties.
I was very pleased that Planning Committee made a number of improvements, and I thank them for doing that. I would have liked to see more dialogue between the applicant and the community. And there's certainly a lot of work to be done at the site plan stage, but it is certainly my hope that the community and the applicant will develop a meaningful and long-lasting relationship into the future.
Fraser Needham, AP10 National News, Ottawa.
And those are the headlines for the ICT Newscast. Coming up, we get a preview of Pope Francis's trip to meet with Canada's residential school survivors. And it's time for sports with Brent Cahwee. But first, a San Manuel leader receives high honors. Earlier this year, San Manuel was given an honorary doctorate degree from California State University, San Bernardino. Santos, who has passed on, was the founding leader of the San Manuel Band of Mission Indians. The tribe's vice chairman, Johnny Hernandez, was honored to accept the degree for a man he had always admired. ICT's Shirley Snavy has this interview.
Let's talk about Santos Manuel and what does he mean to the tribe?
Well, Santos Manuel is our namesake, like you had said, and really he was the leader that, a little background. In 1866, there was a month-long killing spree in the San Bernardino Mountains here to rid the mountains of all Native American people. And he led our people, the Yahaviatum clan, from the mountains down to the valley floor. And at that point, there was only 20 to 30 Yahaviatum left. And so, his strength and really his leadership, he was a spiritual leader and he was a cultural leader as well. And his work and his leadership still lives today. Our vision, mission, values is what we live by. And that was all because of leadership that was all because of leadership from Santos Manuel and also all of our ancestors that followed. Because of leaders like him, we look at the sustainability of our tribe for 7 generations. As a vice chairman in our current council, we look to not just what today, but really how do we sustain our tribe for the next 7 generations? That way our grandkids, our great-great-great-grandkids have the same opportunities we have. And that way, those days, we don't ever go back to those times of, that's really the true responsibility of a leader is to, excel your people and to never go backwards.
You've been very instrumental in bringing the attention of Indian education in California to the forefront by working with Assembly Member James Ramos in trying to create some legislation that would require Native American history to be offered in the California school system. Did I describe that right?
Yeah, I believe what you're talking about is AB 1703, which was written by James Ramos, and San Manuel is a proud sponsor of that. And yeah, the bill encourages local education agencies and charter schools to form California Indian Education Task Force to develop curricular materials on the history, culture, and government of local tribes, and requires the task force to submit a report to finding the California Department of Education. And it's a great opportunity because there's many tribes within California. California actually has the largest amount of tribes in the country, and we all have unique languages, history, culture, and there's actually 109 tribes in California. And every tribe is unique to how they govern themselves and really how they practice their sovereignty. So it's important for those local communities to learn and understand about their local tribes. The tribes down here in Southern California really differ from the tribes in Central and Northern. And while we share a lot of aspects and goals, we're all our own unique governments. And it's important for the community to understand that.
Certainly, when you look at the landscape in where you are in San Manuel, it's certainly a lot different than the Kurok in Northern California. I mean, your whole economy is different.
Yeah, definitely.
And speaking of economy, the San Manuel tribe has done a great deal to benefit people in your area and across the country as far as economic development, cultural development, and education through the grants programs in the past. I know Vision Maker Media was a recipient of one of those grants back when I was employed by them a few years ago. What are some of those efforts that you're most proud of?
Well, yeah, the education, I think you touched on the education. One of our education pillars, giving pillars, education is one of the top priorities for the tribe. I think it's just right behind security and safety. But the tribe has awarded more than $40 million in education grants, both to Native and non-Native educational programs in the last 4 years. And really, we look at it as equity and access to education for all, for Natives and non-Native people. Education is listed out on our vision, mission, values, and it's one of the top priorities because we see as education really as that the ability to really be self-sustainable within your own family, not to have to rely on government programs or even tribes or those things. Is you have the opportunity for education to better yourselves. So how can we get access and to education programs for all, especially our Native people, and also a lot of the programs that we support. I use University of Redlands. We have the Partnership for Native Students program as an example. Is a lot of the Native students that attend these programs at universities, it's one of the first times that they're off reservation or away from family, so they really feel lost, homesick, and they really don't feel like they fit within that community. So how can we provide them the support so they could really go to school with people that look like them and come from other communities like that, but also offer the support that they need. That way they're not being homesick or culturally missing, what they're missing from home and those things. And also we do a lot with scholarships and, programs. I think we touched on the AB 1703. It's really to get that accurate historical information out there to the community as well.
That's great. Any last thoughts or anything else you want to make sure we talk about as we're in the last minute of this interview?
Yeah, I think, just education is one of those biggest priorities. I think communities could really, dig themselves out of the situations they're in. There's, and also acknowledging that, a 4-year degree is not for everybody, whether it's a trade school or entrepreneurship. As a tribe, we're looking at all those things, not for the community, but also for our own citizens. That's pretty important.
Well, thank you very much, Vice Chairman. Glad you could join us. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
That was Vice Chairman Johnny Hernandez from the San Manuel Band of Mission Indians. We'll be right back. It's time for sports, Indigenous sports, that is. Brent Cahwee from the ndnsports.com website is here today. Brent, welcome.
Hello, Mackenzie. How are you doing?
I'm doing great today. So to just get right into it, we're looking at Janie from the World Athletic Championships. What can you tell us about what she's doing with the hammer throw?
Yeah, Janae Casnavoid. She's from the Comanche Nation of Oklahoma, and she recently competed in the World Athletic Championships that was hosted in Eugene, Oregon. And this was her first time being on the Team USA World Championship team. And she ended up getting the bronze medal in the event, which was the first time that a Native American woman had earned a medal in the World Championship event. So it was a pretty historic moment. It was something that she was excited about. I was able to speak with her after her event, and she was really proud of what she was able to accomplish, and she was really excited about the support that she's received from Indian country as well, with people reaching out on social media and acknowledging her efforts.
What can you tell us is going on within the Cherokee Major League baseball?
Yeah, one more before I wanted to add that to the hammer throw event is we also had a First Nations member from the Mohawk Nation, Jillian Weir. She was on Team Canada and she finished 5th place overall. And what's really cool about Jillian Weir from the Mohawk Nation was she was also selected as team co-captain for Team Cannabis for the World Championship. So it was really an honor for her to be named that. And then she, like I said, she finished 5th when she was ranked 29th in the world coming into the championship. So she's definitely improved her performance, and it's going to come out higher ranked heading into other championships this summer. But yeah, Ryan Halsey, who's from the Cherokee Nation of Oklahoma, he's a relief pitcher from the St. Louis Cardinals organization. He was recently selected to the Major League Baseball All-Star Game, and it was his first of his career. And one thing that's really people don't know about Ryan is he's really proud of his heritage. He's really proud of being a Cherokee Nation member. He actually went to the Sequoia Indian Tribal School when he was in high school, and he played 4 sports while he was there. But it was his first Major League All-Star selection for his career, and he was actually able to get into the game, and he actually threw 8 pitches over 100 miles an hour with the top speed. 2 of his pitches were 103 miles an hour, which was like the first time that somebody had thrown that many pitches over 100 miles an hour in an all-star game. So he's just a really talented individual, and we were all proud of him. Like I said, he's proud of his heritage. And in the off season, he goes and volunteers at the Cherokee Immersion School down in Tahlequah, Oklahoma, and he just does a lot of great things for the community. And I was proud of him and excited to see him be on the national stage like that.
Yeah, it's really awesome to see Indigenous athletes break barriers and overcome a lot of, honestly, and make history. Moving on, so there's a lot of fire under the Atlanta Braves for their name. What can you tell us is going on with that?
Yeah. One of the things with Ryan, he's been really outspoken. Obviously, the St. Louis Cardinals play the Atlanta Braves, and they still have fans that participate in the Tomahawk Chop, and he's been really outspoken about that with various stories that have been covered, and saying that it needs to stop, as it should. So he's been really outspoken in those regards too, with those particular issues, and hopefully there'll be some change, like the Washington Redskins. Hopefully we'll see some change within that organization. But also recently, outreach takes time, and those things take time to have discussions with. And recently, the 7G Foundation began working with the Atlanta Braves to host a Native Top 50 baseball showcase and all-star game that happened over the weekend. And 7G Foundation, based out of California, selected 50 of the best Native American baseball high school prospects, and they were transported to the Atlanta Braves organization, where they were able to be showcased in front of college scouts, Major League Baseball scouts, colleges and universities who are looking for prospects, and they were able to do a showcase for one day, and then the next day they did an all-star game. So the kids were able to actually play on the Atlanta Braves actual baseball field for the all-star game. So that was a neat experience for everyone. Everyone had a great time. Everyone got exposure, and it just takes time building those relationships with those organizations so that those discussions for name changes can happen.
Yes, 100%. Moving on to Las Vegas and what's going on with the Oklahoma Thunder. What could you tell us about their summer league?
Well, Lindy Waters, who's from the Kiowa and Cherokee Nations in Oklahoma, this was his first NBA summer league, and he was able to, play all summer with the Oklahoma City Thunder organization. Right now, he's on a 2-way contract, and he's hoping that after the summer league is done now, that he'll be able to move into a permanent contract with the Thunder organization or any other organization as well.
That's great. Well, Brent, thank you so much for joining us today. We're all out of time. I appreciate you, and thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
More than 150,000 First Nation children were forced to attend state-funded Christian schools from the 19th century to the 1970s. The trauma of this forced removal resonates today. It's time for atonement. Pope Francis is expected to visit Canada starting on Sunday. ICT's Miles Morrisseau will be there. Welcome, Miles.
Hello, Mackenzie.
Coincidentally, this visit falls on St. Anne's Day. Can you explain to the viewers who don't know what that is, what exactly that means?
Well, centered to this visit, the focus is to address the relationship, the responsibility of the church played Indian residential schools. And there will be a visit to a former Indian residential school on Musqueam First Nation, the Ermine Skin Residential School, on the 26th, which is the Monday, the first day. And it is there that it is anticipated, if there is a public apology, that the Pope will apologize there. The following day begins the Feast of St. Anne. And St. Anne is Jesus's grandmother, for those who were unaware of the scripture. And that celebration is marked by a gathering at the Lac St. Anne, which is just west of Edmonton, where the Pope will arrive. And there, literally thousands of Indigenous people have gathered for more than a century. It is like a mecca for Indigenous Catholics. And so the combination, I guess, of the Catholic tradition and Indigenous spirituality, I think, played a role in the decision of why the Pope will include that in his upcoming visit.
And this visit is historic. And logistically, how do you cover an event like this? Will there be Indigenous reporters? How do we cover something like this?
At this point, I am not sure which other Indigenous media has had media accreditation. It was a long process for us to get this access. So ICT News is there. I'm anticipating other Indigenous media, but we don't know. I don't know until we arrive. And then looking at how important this story is for Indigenous people, it will be very important that we have an Indigenous perspective that covers this historic moment. So certainly appreciate the opportunity to do that for ICT News.
And then could you touch more on what the Pope's schedule looks like for his visit?
So he arrives on the Sunday, the 25th, at the Edmonton International Airport. There is a ceremony that the Pope does upon arrival. It'll be interesting as well to see whether there is a land acknowledgement on that territory, the Treaty 6 territory in which the Edmonton Airport is based. And then the following Monday, it is the visit to Musqueam First Nation. As I said earlier, anticipated if there is a public apology. It's important to note that the Pope made private apologies to Indigenous people in April earlier this year, to groups of Métis, First Nations, and Inuit delegates. The anticipation that this will, of course, be a public apology and an acceptance of the Catholic Church's role. And so that we expect on Tuesday, if it happens. Later that afternoon, he will visit the First Peoples Church in Edmonton. The following day, he travels to the Feast of St. Anne, and he will also be doing a mass Catholic service at the football stadium, the Commonwealth Football Stadium, anticipated attendance of 65,000 people. The following day, he will travel to Quebec City, and we'll do a service there, as well as meet Indigenous representation from the eastern part of the country on that day as well. And then on the 29th, he will fly to Iqaluit in Nunavut and meet with Inuit residential school survivors. So the Pontiff is making clearly an attempt to visit territories where First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people have traditionally called home.
And overall, because this is such an historic event and it is really impactful for Indigenous communities, what do you think, how will this impact the future of Native people populations?
Well, I think that there's no doubt that because of the the power, the presence, the history of the Catholic Church. The eyes of the world are watching. And in every major country in which there is a large Catholic population, which is almost every country of the world, they'll be watching as well. And so the words and the meaning, the interpretation of what is being said as these events unfold, there will be, they'll be dissected and looked at as part of a history of what this means. Because for those survivors and for those who are looking for some type of apology, those words could be very meaningful in terms of their healing journey. And those folks also represent our elders. They're our grandparents, our aunts and uncles. And so the role that they have in our communities and our families is important. And so for them to heal, I feel will help to heal all of us in this process.
Well, Miles, we're all out of time, but thank you so much for being here. I appreciate you.
Thank you very much.
And that's a slice of our Indigenous world. For all the latest, visit us at ictnews.org. From all of us in the newsroom, stay safe, my relatives. I'm Mackenzie Allen Charmley.
Sometimes you got to take a stand just because you know you can. Oh, you got to run, you got to run.
ICT News is produced by Indig Public Media.
This program is made possible in part by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, a private corporation funded by the American people.